The opinions you hear on Your Mountain from individual hosts or guests do not necessarily represent those of Your Mountain, our sponsors, or other entities we're affiliated with professionally or otherwise. You've waited long enough. Go listen to the show.
There are millions of acres of opportunity out there. They belong to you. Every day, decisions are being made that affect your land, your water, your wildlife. You should know about them. This is Your Mountain.
What's up, Dave Wilms?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Mountain podcast. I'm your host, David Wilms. Nephi Cole, still there.
I'm in a chipper mood.
I feel like we just had an episode recording.
I feel the same way because we did.
Because we just literally pressed stop and start.
Yeah. But I'm in a better mood, interestingly enough, than I was at the at onset of the last one. For some reason, the fact that we forced our listeners to wait a week is just, I don't know why that makes me smile, but it does.
What if I do a double release and release both of the episodes on the same day?
You could do that. You could do that. Yeah. I can't decide if it makes me sad or not.
No, probably has to be spaced out. But
because the problem is, it has to be spaced out because there's no guarantee. We don't know when we're going to record another one of these. That's the truth of the matter.
Yes, we do. I can tell you exactly. I can circle it on the calendar.
Is it like next Tuesday or something like that, or like a week from Tuesday?
I'll timestamp this. We're sitting here recording on Saturday, the 13th of September. So while all of you listeners are out there in the field archery hunting, we are sitting in our offices recording this episode in the middle of the day on the 13th of September. But here in less than 2 weeks, here in a week and a half, you and I think, are going to both be in Tucson together.
We are, yeah.
And we probably should do something in person.
Yeah, we're going to. We don't know what.
And we probably should think about somebody we want to
we should
have on as a guest that's going to be there.
We have like our traditional guests who are always at AFWA. Maybe should we try and get somebody new?
I've got some ideas for some new guests that are at AFWA.
Good. Well, I can't wait.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be in person.
That means I'm going to have to bring the extra headset.
Just, one extra headset, right?
Yeah.
Well, we have to have a total of 3.
How many headsets do you have? I have 3 here, I think.
I think I only have 1.
You have a headset there, right?
I do have a headset here.
You should bring it so that then we can bring that headset because then we can do
4.
We potentially do double guests. Because usually when I travel, I just travel with the 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'll bring mine. So we'll have 4. I thought we had 5 for some reason. Well, maybe I have 2.
I don't know.
Did we only have 4?
I think we only had 4. Yeah,
we had
4.
those garbage. We had those really cheap garbage ones when we first started.
Yeah, we still have some of those.
Do you have them?
I have no idea where they are.
I don't know where those are either.
No, but we got this recorder. We got the Zoom 4.
I've still got the Zoom 6.
The PodTrack P4. Yeah, so does that have? But that only has 4 inputs on it. But then it has an adapter for 2 more.
It has yeah, that's right. It has an adapter so you can get up to 6 on it.
Mm-hmm. I don't even remember how that one works anymore.
I think I could figure it out. Do I need to bring it, or are you good with the one you got?
Nah, we're good. This one works awesome because this one's more fire and forget, and you can run this one on batteries. And that one's a really particular beast.
That one really likes this one that I've got here. Really wants to be plugged in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll run this one.
Okay. Well, I'll throw in an extra headset. So now you've heard we've had our planning meeting, so you've all heard that.
Planning meeting's done.
Planning meeting's done.
Yep.
And you know what it also means is we just talked about doing switching to video. I wonder if we could do video on that one there.
I've wondered the same thing. Well, I certainly can use it. So basically, but I don't have to because, we won't record on it anymore we'll talk about all this later.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
No, I know how it works. I know the program.
We also have to talk about this hunting thing I got coming up.
Oh, that's right. You wanted to pitch me on something. Do you want to do it on this podcast or do you want to do it another time?
Well, I mean, we could
let's
on
do
the
it another time.
podcast because, but it's
No, let's
just
do it another time.
it'll make you look really bad if you say no on the.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it off the air.
Love, we should do it now.
No,
Just kidding.
put me on the spot.
Yeah. Cheapskate. We'll see if you guys are gonna.
All right, you had an idea. For an
No,
episode.
let's talk about.
Tee it up.
So that we can talk.
Tee
If we
this
get
up.
more time, there's another one that we can talk about. But there's been a big discussion in Wyoming about this issue of landowner tags, and this comes up in every state, like every Western state. So there are different rules and regulations in each state, about these landowner tags. So what are they? Who gets them? Some states allow you, based on if you have lands, you get to have X number of tags, and then in some states those tags have to be used by you. In others, you could decide who gets to use those tags, these landowner tags. And so in Wyoming, this is a hot topic. And I want to talk about why it's a hot topic, the reasons it's a hot topic, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly about it, and then the difference of perspective of different organizations, and then let's just kick around ideas like where it could go, what happens, where does it go from here, and it's going to be real ugly. And let's just preface this by saying we don't have there's not a position of the Your Mountain podcast definitively on this, and we both have strong feelings about aspects of this, but I think I'm malleable to a degree.
From what you and I have talked about, you're a lot more malleable than I am, which means this is going to be an interesting discussion.
It's going to be good times. I can't wait. So let's talk about landowner tags. So here's the deal. Here's what happened in Wyoming recently. There is a proposal for a number of bills proposing changes to what is the quote unquote landowner tag. Well, let's talk
go back to the last session first, though, because
let's go back further than that. Let's go back.
You want to go back to the 1950s?
1949. 1949, Wyoming comes out with a law, and that law creates the opportunity for a landowner with 160 acres for a.
Whoa, nope.
No, what was it? 80?
No, the acreage is set by the Game and Fish Commission.
Oh, okay.
Not by the legislature.
But it creates.
So the legislature just set the law saying that a landowner is able to get tags for limited quota big game species that utilize their land.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the commission has to create rules and regs to make all this work.
Right.
Let's get.
And I think that law said two.
That's right.
Landowner.
That's right.
Per species. Two per species.
2 per species. So you got 2 elk, 2 deer, 2 antelope, right?
Yeah.
And it's just for those species, and it's for trophy species.
Not trophy.
Not trophy.
Just big game.
Big game species.
Big game species. 2 tags in limited quota units.
Yeah.
Not antlered. Not antlered. Just limited quota.
Okay.
So
if you had a limited quota for cow, then
you could have cow limited quota.
Yep.
You could have big. Yeah.
So
it just has to be a limited quota, not a general tag. If it's a general unit, you could get the license anyway. So you're not entitled to a landowner license.
Well, I think this is all very interesting. Here's the most important question. So let's ask the question why they would do this thing. So what's the purpose? Why did they do this thing, Dave? Why would you do this? What's the justification for doing this?
Yeah. So at the time, and you have to go in Wyoming, every state's different as far as the records that they keep, the legislative history that they keep. In Wyoming, the legislative history is practically non-existent. So you have to go with, my grandfather told me this. That's the legislative history.
And since that guy's still in the legislature right now today, it makes it pretty easy to know exactly what Ogden Driscoll meant in 1949 because he's still there.
That's exactly right. It's it's that, or it's a game of telephone. It's like my grandpa, who's the legislature at the time, said this is the intent, but the perceived intent, the understood intent of this was to say landowners are stewards of the land. They own this land that creates habitat for the wildlife to be on. That wildlife is eating some of the resources that could otherwise go to the livestock that landowner is trying to grow. And that landowner, because of that, because they're providing that habitat and because they're probably losing some forage for providing it, if they want to hunt, by golly, they should be entitled to hunt.
Give them a tag.
Give them a tag. And in
them
a
a
lot of
tag.
states, to be clear, a lot of states do this.
It's a
But
thank you.
a lot of other states do it and say, you should be entitled to hunt your own land. If you have land and you've got
Yeah.
animals on them,
You should be able
entitled
to hunt your own land. Now I have a question
Wyoming
for
does
you.
it a little different.
This is gonna
right?
hold on. I got to ask this question because it's gonna play heavily into my arguments in the future.
So you're controlling this narrative of this discussion.
I just want to make sure I got my ammo in my gun, so I'm ready to go. So Dave, listen to it. So 1949, the state legislature in Wyoming's like, you know what? We'll give you a couple tags because clearly it's important to us. You're providing habitat. We want to encourage. We want healthy wildlife around. It's on your place. You like. What do you think, Dave, was the value of that tag at that time?
The value of that tag was whatever the meat that they put in their freezer was.
Yeah, that's the
At the
value of the
time.
tag.
I think that's the value of the tag.
So
It
what
was
did
the
we
meat
think?
that they put in the freezer?
I mean, but what would you say? Like, what I mean, was it $10 for a tag?
oh, like what people were spending on a
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if it was that much. I haven't
Okay.
gone back to look at the cost
then-
of an elk tag in 1949.
I
but
haven't
it's
either,
certainly-
but it's not a lot. And
Not a
what do
lot.
we think the demand? Now, this is the next question. So this is an economics question. It's a little bit of economics argument here. Supply and demand. So it's safe to say that the supply of those tags there was high supply of tags, and the demand for the tags was relatively low.
I don't know. It depends
No,
on
that's
the
fair.
species.
I mean,
Depends on
it's-
the species. Remember, in 1949, elk populations were significantly lower than they are today. Right? We're in kind of the golden age of elk. Right? I mean, remember, you only have to go back to like the 1920s to be at a place where huge parts of the West that now have elk everywhere had no elk in them. Like the stock of elk, the greater Yellowstone area became the source of elk restoration in all of these places all over the country.
Well,
so I just want to
in 1949,
biologically have
the
some biological accuracy there.
In 1949, a non-resident elk tag in Wyoming was a $50 tag.
Non-resident
A
tag.
non-resident tag in Wyoming was
Yeah.
$50 in 1949, which isn't
Okay.
nothing. You know,
I don't know inflation adjusted what that means, but
it's fairly pricey. Let's
Yeah.
you talk for a second while I figure it out.
well, okay. While you're figuring that out, I'm going to double down on the elk piece. I like to tell this story of my grandpa. Right, like when he was elk hunting in Idaho. I don't know if he ever actually killed an elk. He hunted elk for several years in the 50s, in the 40s, but I don't know if he ever killed an elk because there just weren't many elk around, and now there's tons of elk. So those landowner licenses at that time actually probably had quite a bit of value because there's some places that just didn't have a lot of elk yet.
Well, Dave,
Did you just do an
$628 today.
That's not far off from what it actually
No,
costs
that's pretty
today.
interesting, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
if you were out of state or in Wyoming, it's like it's actually it's on par.
Yeah, that's not totally out of whack.
No, it's pretty. It's pretty interesting. So anyway, where were we? I just want 1949.
You were asking the value of.
Yeah, and we
So it's
did
about the
this.
same.
We did this because we recognized value in that opportunity. Now, here's what's interesting in Wyoming. Some interesting things about elk tags. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you can back me up if we need to. I think we need to define what landowner licenses are in Wyoming in order to understand what the big debate is about in Wyoming that's going on. So right now in Wyoming, the commission has set out where you can have a landowner license. The acreage is set. So if I'm a landowner, what does that mean? Well, I don't qualify because I've got a half acre in Sheridan, Wyoming. I don't qualify as a landowner. I have to have 160 acres. I have to have 160 acres of land. So we've set just set an amount, and then there's a certain number of user days, of animal days on that 160 acres that you have to meet in order to qualify. And I believe, Dave, is that 200 days? I believe it's 200 user days. And so
I don't know what
that could be. That could be one animal for, 200 days. It could be 200 animals for a day. Now, here's the problem. Here's where we're starting to run into issues. I'll tell a story, Dave. Can I tell the story?
Which I don't know. Which story are you telling?
Several years ago, I had a good friend approach me and said, "Hey, you know what's really cool to hunt? Area 7 in Wyoming." And this good friend was like, "Man, Area 7 is a great place to hunt in Wyoming. And you know what we ought to do? We ought to get 4 of us together, buy 160 acres in Area 7. Stop me if you've heard this, Dave. Buy 160 acres in Area 7, and then we could all take turns. Just like we'll go in obviously this guy was an attorney because he's like, hey, I found the loophole. We can have a corporation. We can add dudes to this corporation, and then we can just basically decide everybody's going to get a tag. We can avoid the draw. Even better, we can put in for the draw still, and whoever doesn't get it, like the unlucky guys, we can figure this whole thing out because we got 160 acres, and we can leverage the landowner tag for recreational purposes to be able to always have a place to hunt elk. Now, here's the problem, Dave. That friend, super intelligent guy, phenomenal attorney, one of the best podcast hosts that I know, who came up with this idea, who never did end up buying the land. But other smart people have done the same thing. And so in Wyoming, without a doubt, you have this issue where the landowner tags now, this idea, the landowner with this 160 acres, somebody's figured out, a bunch of people came in and subdivided and bought up in prime hunting areas real estate the right size to where somebody who was less interested in who it's not that they are not interested in having a cabin in the mountains, but it's just that they want that cabin in the mountains for a huge part of it is because they know it comes with 2 elk tags. And that's happened all over the state of Wyoming.
Yeah, in fact, I can give you a couple of. Do you want some numbers?
Do it. Yeah.
Here's some numbers from. Now this is 4-year-old data, so I would actually venture to guess that these numbers have gone up.
Do you want to? Do you want to confess to being the guy, or do you want me to keep that a secret?
You can keep it a secret for now.
Okay. All right.
So here's some 2021 numbers, and I'll give 4 units. Okay. And this is in Wyoming. So let's start with Unit 7 that you were just talking about. So 19% in Unit 7, 19% of all Type 1 elk licenses went to landowners.
And Type 1, that's your bull tag, everybody.
That's your bull tag. That's right. That's the bull tag. Type 1. In Unit 117, it was 29%. In Unit 2, 36%. In Unit 124, it was 42% went to landowners. And that was for resident landowners, because there are also tags that go to non-resident landowners as well. So there, from what I understood, and I don't have the most recent data, but there are 1 or 2 units in the state where almost 100% of the tags now are going to landowners.
That's really interesting, because all those areas that you just mentioned happen to have really good hunts.
There's a reason why I picked those units.
Yeah, they're desirable. They're the ones, and this is an issue.
And they have good public land access too. Like there's good.
Yeah,
these units have a lot of public land too.
They would be the perfect spot to buy 160 acres in order to be able to get a tag that nobody else can get. And it's a tag that you or I have been putting in. We could put in for that tag in some of these areas. There are areas where if you draw it, like the success rate is extremely high, and it is for trophies. It is big animals.
I have drawn that Unit 7 tag 4 times. And I have killed 4 bulls, and 3 of the 4 were 330 or bigger. Well, 320 or bigger.
It's a good tag.
It's a good tag, right?
Yeah.
The one thing you didn't mention, or if you did, I just missed it, for Wyoming, and it's different in different states. But in Wyoming, you can use that landowner tag not just on your own property.
Yes, we didn't mention it.
You can use it anywhere in the unit. So
that's a dirty secret.
People go in and buy the 160 acres, and they meet their animal use requirement, but then they don't have to hunt their land, and a lot of times they don't. In fact, I'd argue that in a lot of these instances, particularly with the landowners that just have the 160 acres that did this, that broke up ranches to get shares of property that qualified for landowner tags, that they actually don't hunt their property.
They don't hunt their property. They hunt someplace else.
They hunt someplace else in the unit.
Yeah, they hunt the public. They hunt the public. And so
yeah.
that's one of the things that's really unique. When you tell most people this, and I'm talking about you tell legislators this, or you tell people who work in the like firearms industry, people this, and you're like, oh yeah, you start talking about landowner tags, and everybody just assumes that this guy's sitting, that these 2 dudes are camped out on their 160 acres hoping that the elk come. They're not. They're hunting the entire unit. So now I want you to just step back, just think about this. We're going to argue about this later. Now I want you to think about what's the value of that tag. What's the value of that tag? And here's the kind of this huge problem, right? Huge problem. Like, well, let's say that you or I let's say that we put together a little corporation, bought 160 acres and added two dudes to it. Every year we sell interest in that corporation. We get rid of 2 guys, add 2 more guys, whatever. What's the value of a guaranteed Area 7 elk tag to somebody who's really into hunting? Well, I can tell you what the value is of a commissioner's tag in the state of Wyoming. It's over $10,000.
Well, here I'm going to give you an Area 7 example here.
Okay.
So 2 things. One, let's talk resident, let's talk non-resident.
Okay.
Resident, you said the draw rate is really low, right? The success rate in Area 7 is low. I think it was between 20 and 25% success rate this year in the draw. So like I can tell you I draw that tag about once every 4 to 5 years is typically how often I would draw it. So if you had an opportunity to draw it, and it's produced every time I've drawn it in a big way, right? And so if you had an opportunity to draw it more frequently, there's value to it. Right now, it takes about 14 preference points as a non-resident to be able to draw that Area 7 tag. Okay, if you're spending so you're talking about 14 years of your life dedicated to points. And if you're going to do that, you want to be able to be successful, right? And you're going to get that tag. Well, let me ask if here's the value of the hunt. I don't know if this is the value of the tag. I mean, you're talking about the commissioner's tag. That's an actual tag. That's what they're selling for. There's an outfitter in Area 7, big outfitter, runs on 300,000 acres of private, but also has access to a lot of public interspersed with that. A tent camp, 5-day tent camp hunt for a bull elk, $14,200. If you want to hunt, and that's that type 1. That's that really the kind of the valuable tag. If you want to stay in nicer accommodations, you're looking at over $17,000 for a 5-day hunt. I don't know, like if that puts it into perspective, but as a landowner, like I think that adds a cost to it, right? As a landowner, you have a landowner in Area 7 that's able. Now they're outfitting. This isn't just offering access. They've got somebody that's guiding you, that's monitoring all these animals, that's all that sort of stuff. But you're looking at just over $14,000. plus your license fees and transportation, all that stuff. But just that the hunt itself would cost you $14,000.
What's the difference between the resident and non-resident landowner
What do you mean?
in terms of landowner tag eligibility?
I don't think there is a difference.
I don't think so either. Okay, moving on. So, I mean, that makes it really interesting. So that I think we need all that in the background. And the reason, like, I'm glad that you explained that, because now we're looking at 1949 value. Today, the value of the opportunity has gone up significantly, and that creates some good and bad problems. So let's get to the debate, because then have we backgrounded this enough to be able to like now understand all the challenges in the debate? Because now what we've got going on is the agricultural community, and I think let's set them out here, what their issue is. So now that we've talked about this we got this small acreage issue. And I think that that's a valid issue, because here's the deal. Like, how many acres of ground do you think it takes to grow a bull elk?
A lot.
A lot. A lot more than 160.
Yeah, a lot. Unless that elk's just sitting in a cornfield or an alfalfa field every day, all day.
And he's not.
Which it's not.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you have one bull elk, remember we got two. We're giving away 2 tags for each 160 acres, right? 2 tags.
That's right.
So we got 2 bull elk growing here. 2 trophy bull elk. How many cows, calves, and non-bulls are in this group that's growing these 2 bull elk?
Well, here's what I'll tell you.
Like, we're talking about a lot of acreage now.
Here, I was going to give you an example. 2 years ago, I shot a 330-inch bull in Area 7. He was the herd bull, and there were probably 75 cows, calves, spikes, other elk with him. It was a herd of probably 75, 80 elk, and he was the herd bull for that herd.
Dave, it's more than 160 acres.
It's more than 160
It's a lot of acres.
Yeah.
So here's the argument that you had come up. So now let's set aside this first part of the argument. This isn't even arguing yet. This knowledge base that we've created. So now I'm going to be a landowner. I'm a landowner, and I'm going to be the let's see. What should I call my ranch, Dave? 7C. It's the 7C. So the 7C is a 40,000 acre ranch. The 40,000 acre ranch is a 4th generation Wyoming cattle ranch, sitting in an area that provides prime habitat for elk. And it's a legit cattle ranch. This one hasn't been bought and sold. It's always been in the family, right? And so this ranch now, that's run by dad, grandma, the boys, like legit cattle ranch. This thing is going to host all winter long. It's going to host well over 1,000 elk are going to be on there. There's over 1,000 elk on the ranch right now, someplace in the trees. And so you've got these large properties, right, that are home to elk. Well, I can tell you what's going to happen in the wintertime. Starting in September, there's going to be a herd of about 400 elk in the alfalfa. And they're going to be there. You'll be able to chase them out. They'll move out of the way of the tractors and stuff like that. But they'll be trying to get into the stack yards. If they can't get into the hay, they're going to get into the hay. They'll be pulling hay off of bales. And the other thing that they will for sure be doing, because this family, let's just say this family, is not friends with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation yet. So they don't have wildlife-friendly fencing. They don't know if, they've never dealt with that. So
just tearing stuff up.
These elk are just running through everything, eating everything. This family hates elk. They hate them. They hate them.
I feel like you're talking about an actual family here. This isn't your hypothetical ranch.
They hate them. But I love elk. And so I think that there's nothing that it's more important than this family, trying to, coexist with elk, because it's just great area. So is that different than the 160 acres that we just talked about? For sure it is.
Yeah, of course.
And so we're in a situation now. So this individual and their constituency, Wyoming stock growers type of folks, they're coming to the legislature and they're saying, wait a minute, we got a problem. We are providing habitat for elk, and we want to make some money on this. We think that we should be able to transfer our tags. And there's different levels of this transfer of tags in Wyoming. Right now, Wyoming, if you qualify for this tag, if you get the tag, and bizarrely, this family has to have an argument with Game and Fish about whether or not they've got enough elk on there to qualify, right? And what we do know is that Game and Fish is supposed to check every year for that 200 use days. They're supposed to check it. They can't. On that 160 acres, any place else, they just don't have the manpower. They're talking about a cycle where they could get out at least once every 5 years to potentially have a biologist check the habitat and make sure they can get to it. It's just our Game and Fish department's like everyone's. Like, we don't have enough bodies to do.
Yeah, run and lean.
Yeah. It's tough to get out there. So you've got these challenging issues, and then you've got the representatives from the agriculture community who are saying like, no, we should be able to transfer the tags. How do you think? So that landowner is going to make the argument, right? Why? And that landowner's like, look, I'm spending thousands of dollars in feed. I'm spending thousands upon thousands of dollars fixing fence. They can just go through the litany of challenges that they're having and trying to keep up with this herd. And they're saying, and for that, you're going to let me hunt elk on my property. They kind of, this landowner doesn't even utilize the program because they just think they're like, are you serious? That's how this is going to work. So anyway, it's just a very interesting thing where they're saying like, we should be able to get that tag and give that tag to whoever we want. And there's different versions of this that we'll get into, but transferable tag. How does front country hunters and anglers feel about that?
Look, there's a ton of concern from the hunting community on transferable tags.
Well, tell me.
Oh, go ahead.
I of course, and why? Well, the way I look at it, I'll just point this out, and then we'll go into it.
Yeah.
Let's take both those use cases, and these things collided in the Wyoming in a recent discussion in front of a legislative committee, where you had the traditional landowners coming and saying like, "Look, we got a problem. This program doesn't work for us in any way, shape, or form. We wish you would make it work." Then we got a group of individuals where the commission actually had a meeting where they talked about changing the acreage structure. And 300 people showed up and said, don't you dare. You leave it at 160 acres, right? There's a real problem in Wyoming, which is that you've got two groups of people, both called quote unquote landowners, who are entirely different in how this thing works for them. One group is generally, I'm going to call it recreational. They of course they value that tag. That tag is worth $20,000, isn't it, Dave? It's $10,000 to $20,000 is what the value of that elk tag is.
Depending on the unit, yeah.
Yeah. And so if you've got 160 acres, you've got access to two of these tags every year, that's a pretty good deal. You've got another group who's saying, no, we're landowners and we can't utilize this at all. And it creates this real challenge. So because if we were to say like, let's just say that we let somebody, we were okay with the idea of transferring a tag. Well, what would happen if I gave you 160 acres and then you knew you could make $40,000 off of those two tags every year? You would cut every piece of land you had up into some kind of entity so that you could harvest that $40,000 a year.
Yeah,
the value of that tag would be so high. Anyway, this is all background. These are the things that are going on that make this just a real tough conversation.
Well, it's a tough conversation. I want to run through some stuff here.
Okay.
I want to run through
Let's do it.
because there are places where transferable tags actually exist.
Oh,
right?
Let's talk. You mean other states?
Other states.
Oh, let's talk about
transferable
those other
tags
states.
exist.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, as we talk about that, we also have to talk about how they're different than Wyoming transferable tags.
Well, Wyoming doesn't have transferable tags.
Or Wyoming landowner tags. Because those are landowner tags that are transferable in those other states. For example, Utah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to use New Mexico.
Let's go to New Mexico. That is kind of the. But isn't New Mexico? Let's go. I'll be quiet.
Yeah. We can talk about some other states, but I do want to talk about New Mexico because it is the poster in my mind. If you're a hunter and angler, it's the poster child for why you should be on high alert when conversations go to transferable tags.
Okay.
And let me before I talk about New Mexico, let me also do this. So here's the issue. Transferable tag and why there's so much value behind transferable tags. If you're a landowner, right? The value behind transferable tags in a state like Wyoming, and it's probably the same in a lot of other states too. The value is right now, you can only get these landowner tags in limited quota units. Remember, I mentioned Area 7. I'll focus on that a little bit. 14 preference points for a non-resident required to get a transferable tag. So if you're running a business as a landowner and you're selling access, right? And you're saying, okay, I'm going to charge an access fee of $10,000 to hunt. Well, when you're charging the access fee, you're selling the access to your land, whether it's 160 acres or 40,000 acres. You're selling the access to your land to hunt elk on that land. And it might not be to a return customer, because if somebody can only draw that tag once every 14 years, they might only be your customer 1 or 2 times in their hunting lifetime, right? So you're getting new customers every year. And maybe if you're a landowner, you'd prefer, I'm trying to be as open-minded here as possible. maybe if you're a landowner, you prefer somebody you trust that's coming in on a regular basis, right? I think of Midwestern deer hunters, right, that lease for whitetail, and it's the same folks there every year after year after year. They built that relationship with the landowner. Here, maybe you can't do that as a non-resident, but if you had the opportunity to transfer a tag, you could establish you could find those couple of clients you want to be able to come back every year, and you could sell them that tag every year. The difference also is, though, in Wyoming, you'd sell them that tag and it wouldn't just be to hunt on their property. That tag would be good for the entire unit, not just the property.
The landowner tag.
The landowner tag.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, what they do is they're selling access. So the tag would probably have more value, make more money than just selling access, because access is to a discrete amount of acres instead of the whole unit. Right? And you're not getting return customers. So I just wanted to lay that out there. Like that's a thing.
So what's interesting? I just want to say this before you move away from it. That's one of the reasons that when you talk about landowner tags, it's one of the piggybacking reasons or tertiary reasons why outfitters sometimes aren't a fan of landowner tags either. Because if you are an outfitter and you have essentially leased access, and that's what most of these big ranches have. Most of these big ranches have an outfitter who basically controls all the hunting on the ranch. They've leased the access, right? So that landowner, that outfitter is now a conduit where all these people who are lucky enough to draw the tag, that outfitter doesn't care if it's a repeat client or not. That outfitter controls the access. And so for that outfitter is going to get $17,000, and it doesn't matter who shows up. Whoever the guy is that walks through the door, every one of those dudes, that outfitter, and this isn't just 2 tags, right? This is every tag that comes through the door is going to be that much money. So, well, what if the landowner said like, well, what does your outfitter pay you? $30,000 a year. And that's a real number for all of the outfitting, mule deer and elk, on a large property on the northern face of the Bighorns. Well, if you as a landowner, if you're like, well, wait a minute, I could just sell 3 tags and I don't even have to have an outfitter. I could just sell them to guys that I know or give them to guys that I know and not have to deal with it. That's one of the reasons that outfitters many times don't like this idea.
Yeah. And so let me tell you about what's happened in New Mexico and how that could be replicated in a place like Wyoming or in other places as well. Here are just some numbers for you. So, and these are 2022 to 2023 numbers. The New Mexico Wildlife Federation pulled together a report on license allocations under this. They have what's called an E+ program in New Mexico. That's the elk landowner tag system in New Mexico. So there were 36,000 elk permits and authorizations to buy permits issued in 2022, 2023 in New Mexico. Of that 36,000, 13,600 and change went to landowners. Okay. And of those, non-residents wound up receiving more than 75% of the landowner tags. So landowners are issued these transferable tags. They largely transfer those tags, sell them to non-residents, more than 75% of them. Residents received, if I get this right, I think I'm getting this right. Residents under New Mexico law, 84% of tags are supposed to go through to residents through the public draw. That's what New Mexico statute says. 84% of tags should go to residents through the public draw. That number is right now, because of landowner tag transfers, it is 55%. 55% of tags go to residents through the public draw. And then non-residents are now receiving 35% of elk licenses in New Mexico. And a huge chunk of those, most of that, is coming through these landowner tag transfers.
And it's important to put a pin on this, though, how they're different. Like, what are landowner tags like in New Mexico? The restrictions on them are basically non-existent. In terms of, you decide, if you're a landowner in New Mexico, if I'm telling you so in Wyoming, for example, we have whether it's 160 acres or 40,000 acres, it's 2 tags, right, for each species. Mm-hmm. In New Mexico, there is no such limitation.
I don't know. I have no idea what the cap is per landowner for
Somebody
tag.
from New Mexico is going to call and tell us how dumb we are on this, but it's my understanding that the determining harvest numbers and whatnot on those parcels there, on those parcels, that's the landowner's job. The landowner decides how many are going to come off. So that creates, that's again, all these states are all different. And that's the challenge of this, is like everybody, like you say, these transferable tags, like you've got New Mexico, I would say we would have to hold up as being one of our, like, if we're going to put these on a spectrum, I don't care whether you want to call it the left side or the right side of the spectrum. New Mexico is one of our far sides of the spectrum. It's dang near Texas.
It's hard as a resident to hunt elk in New Mexico. Non-residents are getting such a high percentage of them. And in the good units, the premier units, like the Area 7 type of units in Wyoming, landowners are getting just nearly all of the tags. It's virtually impossible for residents to draw through the draw. And here's the thing I'd say about Wyoming. And let me go back to those numbers that I had told you before, assuming I still have them pulled up here somewhere, which I do. So let's go back to these Area 7 numbers. Or you pick your unit. We've just been talking about 7 so much, I'm going to use it again in Wyoming, where right now, 4 years ago, 19% of the tags, of the type 1 elk tags, the bull elk tags in that unit, were going to landowners. And this is my theory, and if I tell me if you just totally disagree with this.
Okay.
If landowner tags could be transferred to anybody, meaning if a landowner could say, there's a $20,000 value to each of these tags, or call it 15, let's say $15,000. There's a $15,000 price tag on each of these. I can make $30,000 by selling my 2 tags.
Yeah.
Do you think that 19% is going to go up or down?
Of out-of-staters?
No. 19% of tags going to landowners. And
yeah.
again, that was
Yeah.
residents. I didn't count for non-residents, but
In
people
Wyoming?
in Wyoming.
Well, here's the thing. Here's
my point really quick.
It's
people that right now, like the landowner you talked about that doesn't even take the tags because they don't hunt, right? They don't take them. Landowners that don't hunt, that don't take the tags. And there's a lot of them that don't take the tags. If those tags now are worth $15,000 a piece, those, like darn near every one of those landowners are going to take those tags, especially in units that have a lot of public land where they can sell the tag and then say, but you can't hunt my land, right? I'm transferring you the tag and it's good for anywhere in the unit, but I don't want you hunting on my land. Or even if they say you can hunt on my land.
And here's the issue. You're right.
But they might have an out. I'm thinking of the outfitter
If the
situation.
program,
they might have an outfitter.
Yeah, if the
They might
program
have an outfitter and make money with the outfitter, and then say, because I got an outfitter, I will sell you this tag for I'll transfer you this tag for $15,000, and maybe I'll discount it to $12,000 if you use our outfitter. $15,000 gets you the tag for.
As it currently sits, Wyoming's program, a transferable tag is 100% unworkable. And it can't be done. It doesn't work. And you mentioned it briefly, like you hit on this idea that like, okay, well, what's the number today? Does the number go up if they can transfer the tag? Well, of course the number goes up if they can transfer the tag based on the system today. Why? Well, it's 160 acres is all you have to have. And so if you're talking about, well, if we got 160 acres as our number, how many people own 160 acres? Well, then it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because that's a snapshot in time. And if you say it's 160 acres today, 2 years from now, if the value of that tag is what it is, and we all know what the value of the tag is, there will be more 160 acre parcels 2 years from now than there are today by a considerable margin. And it'll continue to go. It'll continue to go up. The program is broken. And unless you change the base motivator, unless you change the rules, you can't even begin to discuss this idea of transferring the tags. Now, with that said, here's a dirty secret. They're already transferable, and it's already happening. And that's why a friend approached me about buying 160 acres in Laramie Peak. Because as much as we like to talk about this idea that, it's all this and we're all holy, these are all semantics. The way the program exists today, a guy can come in and he can buy 160 acres now and he can add a partner next week and give that guy a tag. And so until you correct these loopholes that exist and fix this program, like first of all, you can't even begin to discuss what a 40,000 what Wyoming stock growers wants, because Wyoming stock growers is at loggerheads with the capitalistic drive to create these 160s to be able to provide area-wide tags for people who aren't the original client. So in 1949, when Wyoming Game and Fish dreamed this whole thing up, the idea was you had legitimate agricultural producers providing habitat, and we were going to get them some tags as a way to say thanks and provide some kind of return in value for what they were giving. That's not what we're talking about anymore. What we're talking about, when you have the people who are generally showing up, and this is a different class. A 160 acre landowner, regardless of how great their 160 acres of habitat is, that is not the same thing as a 40,000 acre agricultural producer. They're not providing the same type of habitat. This is not the same thing. These landowner tags that we're talking about, these things are apples and oranges. And until people can wrap their heads around the need to separate those ideas and change that program, you can't even begin to discuss a fully transferable tag, because there's too much money in the small acreages people will create I mean, you don't need to raise anything else for agriculture. If you've got 160 acres in Area 7 and 2 elk tags, you just sell elk tags.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And the one thing we didn't mention, or maybe we did, but we just weren't clear enough about it, is that like how it structurally works. Say you have 1,500 licenses in a unit. Like, say the Game and Fish Department goes in, surveys the elk population, and says, we're based on the population, it can sustain a harvest of X amount, and to get that amount, we think we can issue 1,500 bull licenses. Right? Well, before a single license is issued to the general public through the draw, landowners have the first crack at it, right? They apply for these landowner tags to be able to hunt the unit. And so right now they're taking like 20% right off at the top of that. So 20% of those tags are going to folks that are coming in and buying up. Well, I would love to see the breakdown of which ones are the 160 acre owners and which one are the 10 to 20,000 acre owners in that unit, for example, or even other units in the state. But they're taking that out of the pot first. And so what's available to the public, the general, Joe and Jane hunter that wants to hunt that unit, is actually much less than what the quota says when you apply for a tag. The quota is what it is, but the number of tags that you're applying for are not the quota. You're applying for what's left after the landowners take their quota and their entitlement out of it, like their 2 tags. So your point is right that the system is broken. That right now the value is the people that want to hunt elk every year. The 160 acre value is the people that want to hunt elk every year and they want to get those tags every year. They get that 160 acres and they get their 2 tags. And then you have the legacy landowners that some of them might take a couple of tags, but a lot of them don't. Right? If you instituted transferable tags now, not only would you have the 160 acre landowner that just wants the tags to hunt, now you're going to have a lot more people that want the 160 acres to sell the 2 tags. And you're going to have the big legacy owners that say, there is a revenue stream here. I've got 10,000 acres. What's 10,000 divided by 160? I'm going to set up 10 corporations and I'm going to have 2 tags for each of those corporations. And I'm going to sell all of those tags. And I'm going to make bank.
100%.
And people will do that because people already do. Big landowners.
This is already happening.
They already do that.
It's already happening quietly, wink, wink, with trusts and corporations where guys are doing this. And
Look,
so that's why
there's a ranch. I won't name names, but I know the ranch, but
they named the ranch's name at the hearing, I'm pretty sure. And we have a buddy who used to work there.
But it's a series of ranches, and they have a number of landowner tags, and each year, like they subdivide their ranch into smaller ranches, into corporations, and then their board members become officers of that corporation, like their parent company board members, the ones that want to hunt, so that they can come out and hunt periodically.
And if anybody thinks that money doesn't play into this, that's why, for me, when we start talking about what is the intent of a quote unquote landowner tag, what's a transferable tag, like the whole argument has been sullied because you can't get down to the clean version of what it was or wasn't supposed to do because people have figured out the loopholes. Now, we said we were going to keep this under an hour. We got 10 minutes to talk about the fixes. And I think the first thing is I don't know that you're ever going to get back. I don't know that you're ever going to get back to where it was, but I think with the existing program, I don't know whether you grandfather it, which I think is I think that's what you have to do. I think you have to say this program doesn't exist anymore. Anybody that's not in it isn't getting in it. It's not happening.
And if you sell your property, the new person's not in it.
It's gone.
The new person's in the new program.
Yep, I think you have to.
Yeah,
and
I could see that.
I think you have to do that. I think the number 2 thing I think you must do, I think you must change the acreage number. It has to be reflective of the actual habitat that what you're trying to do isn't just like, I'm not sure that the way that they've, since the way that they've set it up now, I don't think you have enough. You're giving away an item of, a $20,000 value. Again, just using it, a bull elk tag as an example. You're giving that away. You're not getting enough in return. You have to make those numbers even out. The amount of acreage that you're requiring somebody to have in order to play in the program needs to change. And maybe even more simplistic than that is just saying you have to hunt on your place. Because maybe if you have 160 acres, whatever that acreage is, and if that's what if you just say like, no, you're gonna hunt on your place if you're using the landowner tag, then what you're gonna find is a whole bunch of people are gonna get mad because they're gonna say, well, that's not fair because I can't hunt enough of the animals that are in the unit, right? But then you'd begin to have this argument that like, well, I provide so much habitat, right? Isn't this a funny argument? I provide so much habitat on my 160 acres that I should get 2 tags. By the way, I don't have enough habitat to have animals on me during the hunt, right? They may not be on me. I'm going to have to hunt someplace else, but my habitat is so important that I deserve 2 of these super premium tags. And I think that you moving forward, I think that you have to cut it. You have to say, nope, we're not going to do that anymore. Going forward, we're actually going to measure these things at the value that they should be measured at. And I think that it's unpopular. And I don't think it's something the commission can do actually, Dave. And I could explain that if you want to go into, because here's the problem.
Politically.
Yes.
Politically they can't. Legally they can't. Politically they can't.
Because what the commission faces is when the commission proposes a change to this, 300 people show up. Guess who shows up?
All the 160 acre owners.
Yep. And they say, no, don't do it. And then the commission, of course, doesn't do it. It's going to have to be a legislative fix. The legislature is going to have to go in and fix it, which is where this gets extra scary. Because if the legislature is going in there, it's likely that's not the only thing they're going to fix.
I know. No. There's so many other ancillary concerns here too. Right. So in some of these units, like these 160 acre parcels and the value of these elk tags just to be able to hunt every year has actually driven the land prices up. It's pretty remarkable. I was talking to a landowner in this unit 7 at one point. He's like, and he's a rancher. Like that's what he does. He grows cows, right? That's what he does for a living. And he's like, this land is probably worth like $50 an acre. This is really high arid country, short growing season, no water, like, the AUMs are outrageous. And he's like, and land is selling for $4,000 an acre, and he's like, if you want to grow cows out here, you're not growing cows and making a living buying this stuff for $4,000 an acre. It's $50 to $100 an acre, right? It's because of the value of those tags, because of the quality of the elk and people wanting these 160 acre parcels, it's actually driving the price up. So
that's right.
What's interesting is now if you come in and change that, you potentially drive property values down, right? It's funny. That's one piece.
You're right. And here's the thing though, they would all claim that that's not the case, like, right? Because people would have to say like, no. I mean, that's ridiculous. But now let's wave a magic wand and let's say that the 160 acres, let's make it so that there are no more of those. It's a fixed number, or we start to reduce those. We make them hunt on their place. What is the value then? Like so right now, the incentive for that large rancher is actually to cut off 160 acre pieces. The financial incentive is for him to subdivide into these weird little corporate entities and everything else, so that because dudes are going to come in, they're going to pay him way more than that land is worth for the hunting opportunity. What if you took away that incentive and instead you gave him a financial incentive to keep his land?
I say it depends on what that financial incentive is, because I see where you're going with this. Like I'm in like I am in and will remain in the camp probably forever that creating these transferable tags is even with the best intentions in mind, is a slippery slope, because once you open that door a little bit, you're never going to go backwards. You're never going to go back to where it was. You're never going to stay exactly where you started. None of these laws stay exactly where they started. It's going to change over time as a result. Once you stick that camel's nose under the tent, right? It it's just the first step of many in moving to a model that more closely resembles New Mexico's. And I deeply believe that, and there's nothing that you will ever say that will convince me otherwise.
I don't think morally or fundamentally you're wrong. I think where you're wrong is I think that people need to be pragmatists about this and understand that this idea, like when we hold up our nose and we're like, oh, we're never going to allow it, we don't want to see that, is to fundamentally ignore the fact that we're already doing it. Through loopholes, people are already doing it. It's happening. The only thing is the department's not in charge of it. We've got this thing done where we're behind closed doors, it's happening. And then the other, and we're doing it, fundamentally, we're doing it in other ways with other tags, right? With like commissioner's tags, governor's tags. We're doing it with some of the depredation tags that people are, like it exists. And so like this purist, clutching our pearls and being like, no, never, like that's not real. That's not the world we're living in. So my contention is this. My contention is this is happening. It's just happening in a way where we're winking and we're saying it's something else. It's a corporate, and you and I know, there's loopholes. And it's like, well, if there's a loophole, I'm in, jump in the loophole type. There are people that feel that way. But the reality is, if we should step back from it, take a hard look at what the initial intent was, and see, okay, well, if we're going to rejigger this entire program anyway, let's actually make it work for what we want. And my contention is, here's what we want. We want great wildlife habitat, and we want public access. We want access to hunt. And I would contend that, and actually I've heard it, talking to the livestock groups in Wyoming, they've said, we'd love to talk about this and whether or not there's a way for us to make this part of an access program. And my thought process is, do it. If there's a way for us to fix this landowner program and create, number one, opportunities for public access, and number two, an economic driver where the money, and I think that there's a way to do this, where if we're having, I think there's a way to do it where you're not actually filling people's pockets. You're actually building fences and water and creating, habitat incentives and things like that. And, that's why I think that it's a mistake just when people say, like, right now in Wyoming, the problem is on this argument, people are they're running to the extremes on it. The folks on there's the little traditional 160 acre ones. And then there's, this should never happen. Like, everybody's so far apart on these issues because we're not actually admitting what's really going on and trying to find like a workable solution that benefits the species and the sportsman. Anyway, that's my contention.
So I'm totally with you on finding a workable solution. It's just maybe the starting point might be a different place, I guess, or what the sideboards are on that might be a different place. I totally agree that the acreage numbers are wrong right now. But I also don't think you can just pick a number and apply it. I think that the acreage numbers, I think a couple of I'll say three things before you even get to the transferable question. I think we have large parts of our state that are arid rangeland, that there's a lot of public land grazing, but private land grazing as well. But there's not a ton of irrigated agriculture, and to the extent that there is, it's typically alfalfa just to feed the cows that they're growing. Right? That number in those areas the acreage number should be high, should be higher than 160. I don't know what the right number is. I would have to talk more about that, but it should be higher than 160.
Agreed.
We have some pockets of the state that have very productive farm country. They're not growing cows. They're growing corn. They're growing alfalfa. They're growing sugar beets. They're, some places maybe even growing hemp or other things, right? And they might be doing it on 250 acres, and have a very productive operation. And maybe it's not elk there. Maybe it's mule deer or whitetail or something else. But in those areas, I think on those areas, the number might be closer to the 160 number. It might not be, 500 or 1,000 acres or whatever the number is. So you might have different acreages depending on the different types of agricultural practices. So that's one thing. The second thing is I agree with you. I think the hunting should have to occur on the land, on the property, and that's not unique. I have a list, and I'm hoping this is pretty right.
I think
haven't
everybody
fact-checked
else
all
it's
of it
on the property.
but I'm like Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Kentucky, Virginia, Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin. Like all of these, I might have said a few of them twice. Almost all of them require, or at least to most extent, on the property. Like it's not unusual. Like it's not a unique thing. In fact, the way we do it might be unique compared to the rest of the country. Most of the rest of the country might be saying you got to hunt on your own property. So I'm there. I also think that my preference would be that the landowner tags that we currently give go to people that are, I would call traditional, like that's their
40,000 acres, and they're actually a real cattle
that's their
ranch.
business, right? It's not even the 40,000 acre part. They're not a big pharmaceutical CEO trying to buy 40,000 acres to shelter their money from taxes or as an investment for property.
A real
They're not
agricultural
106
operation.
A real agricultural operation. Like that is what they do for a living. Because that's what we intended to thank people for in 1949.
Yeah.
That's what they do for a living.
Well, I agree with you on that.
So those are like those three principles.
Those
would
are
be
the
my
three we
starting
agree
point.
on.
Those are probably the three. Then we might disagree on other parts of it.
Yeah,
right?
because here's what I think. I think that once you do that, then you eliminate. I think you can eliminate the. In fact, I think you can eliminate a lot of the problems that we're having, and then you can start to have a real discussion. Well, what are the things that there's some real opportunities now when you start talking about those lands, those real agricultural lands. And here's where I'd say the opportunities are. Typically, those folks, and I'd say typically those are the folks that now they actually have to use hunting as a management tool. Because those are folks that are saying like, actually, I need them dead.
Yeah,
I need them killed.
That right now are using hunting as a management tool.
Yes. They're trying really hard to get people in to get enough stuff, to get stuff schwacked, And so the opportunity I think is there, and that clearly, and I think that those are the folks too that are, when you talk about the cost, what are the costs that are being incurred? Yes, if you have 160 acres, it costs you money when elk run through a fence. It does. When you times 160 by 20 by 200 or whatever it is to get to 40,000 acres, it's a lot more money. And so I think that that's the other thing that you have to consider is the scale. There's a scale of how much habitat. And again, when we look at where we're going to give the benefits and the tags out and how this should, all those things come into play. And I think that they have to be talked about. We're not going to fix it on this podcast. We're not going to, and honestly, in order to actually be fixed, this discussion deserves a whole bunch of people sitting around a table and really diving in and really crunching numbers.
Yes. So we agree on a lot of things. So because my point is, I think there's a solution. I think you think the solution there might be a way to.
I think part of the solution
to have transferable tags as part of a solution.
I do.
I know you think that.
I think part of the solution, just to wrap a bow around, part of the solution is, if you want landowners, there's this discussion that what should happen is we should pay landowners money, and that's how we're going to make them happy. Is like we'll take X amount of dollars, sportsmen's dollars, and And I know we'll have a trust fund with money, and we'll pay landowners for the inconvenience of having the elk with trust fund money. And my contention is elk are worth a lot of money. And if we do this right, I think that landowner, I think that the elk can pay for access for public access, and I think that the elk can pay for the habitat. And the question is whether we want to, how we get that, how we create that revenue from the elk. And my contention is if we utilize the landowner as part of that partnership to be able to turn elk hunting opportunity into public access, and I think that there's a way to turn it into public access and habitat improvement. To me, that makes a lot of sense to involve the landowners as an active partner in that. And that's where I don't think the problem with saying transferable tags is then we picture New Mexico, or maybe if you live in Missouri, you picture what you have in Missouri. If you live in Wyoming, you picture what you've got in Wyoming. If you live and the problem is like using that verbiage, it doesn't work because it's all like, it can be so many different things. We don't know what it is yet. I do know that what we have right now is an opportunity and a need to fix some problems, and an opportunity to do it right.
Yeah. So what I'll say is I'm not closed off to a discussion, right? I want to have I'm going to have a tough time ever getting into the camp of a true, I issue you 2 licenses, you can sell 2 licenses, no matter where that money goes, because I do still believe in this slippery slope concept. But what I do think is important, and what I think this highlights, is this is an incredibly complicated situation that is a product of now, 75 years of like tinkering with it in ways that have maybe made it worse.
Yeah, it's 75 years of procrastination is what it is.
And we're at a point now where you can't fix this in a 40-day legislative session by trying to negotiate in committee language to a bill to try and fix this problem. What you need is what our office was always really good at when we were there, is you need to set up a process and this is, I think, what you were hinting at, and it's bringing everybody to the table and establishing probably a facilitated process that plays out. And this might be the type of thing that plays out over 18 months, right? Because you have to get all the tax information, the license information, the landowner information, probably do some economic, forecasting, projecting, some license projecting, forecasting. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to get done to try and build a program that works best for everybody, that doesn't ultimately down the road mean less opportunity for hunters, that maybe means more opportunity for hunters, that doesn't mean diminished land values for landowners or more elk problems for landowners, that it actually helps solve some of those problems and helps address some of their revenue needs. Like it's complicated, and maybe the thing we can agree on is we don't know the solution yet.
I think we've agreed on almost everything on this podcast, as much as we're going to argue. Because the reality is, like, we may have it. We both have. I know your pain point, which is just saying transferable tag. That is your pain point, just because
I just feel like you're poking me with a fork every time you say it.
Yeah, but just because of what you've seen. But like, and in my mind, I actually, and everybody knows this. Like, I used to work for NRCS, and so I see the landowners as the solution. I see working together on what becomes a wildlife conservation project that has some unique economic incentives. I know, I just think the program might be different. We all just have to get out of our vocabulary. Like, we have to everybody has to back away from their, like, the things that they love and they hate in their vocabularies on this stuff, and be willing to, really look at it innovatively. But it's really a neat opportunity, and it has to be fixed. And the thing is, Wyoming has a really unique opportunity, because if Wyoming gets it right, all these other states, their stuff's broken. And they would tell you, you talk to somebody from, I won't drop names, but you
Utah.
talk to somebody from Utah and they're like, yeah, man, ours has got some problems. And you're like, yeah,
They've got problems there.
Wouldn't it be
Colorado's
great?
got some problems. New Mexico's got some problems.
yeah, and they all need fixed. And
We've got our own set of problems.
yeah. But yeah, it's just it's a unique opportunity to get together and like to actually work on a fix. And the thing that I can guarantee, and this is what makes this unique for Wyoming right now, I know that there will be bills on this issue that are going to come this session. That's an opportunity. Why is it an opportunity? Because I like, this, Dave, I like the shiny object. When you get somebody that's bringing just a ridiculous, like something that is just out there and you're like, that is not doable. And they bring something they've gone too far, especially when you get people who've gone too far on both sides, it creates a unique opportunity for somebody to walk right into the middle with the solution that neither of the extremes like, but works for everybody. Works for the pragmatic solution, because people will spend so much energy bashing each other over the outliers that everybody has to be like, yeah, that's a non-starter. I agree, that's a non-starter, and then suddenly that's where you find the middle, because people will be like, oh, well, there's some middle.
Yeah,
and that's where I think the opportunity is.
Yeah, I'm going to tell. I agree. There's some opportunity. I'm going to tell you. And I'm looking at the time, like, oh shoot, I got to go to a kid's soccer game here in a second. So probably have to wrap this up here pretty soon. But here's the opportunity I see, and I don't know if we have any legislators in Wyoming that listen to this, but I guess this would be my ask: is if you're going to introduce a bill, that maybe the bill is for something like a joint task force. And providing a little bit of funding to help support that work over the course of the next year to 18 months. Because if you try and solve this too fast, you're going to make it worse. And you're going to alienate some constituencies. And there's a real opportunity here to do it right. And I guess that would be my final thought is we're at a moment where we really should have the hard conversation. And there's, like you said, there's not a quick silver bullet on this. And to find the best middle ground possible is going to take some time. And we need a legislature that's going to allow us to take that time to do it right. I guess that's my thought. Like, this is going to be fun. Please give us the time. Please give us the time to do it right.
We're going to talk about this again, I'm sure. Maybe not on the podcast, but this is coming up again.
No, for sure. For sure. Man. All right. What else you got?
The next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about,
because I've really got to go.
It's going to be the concept of you should only be able to have, this is just a thrown out there. You should only be able to have one big game tag for each species with horns per year.
Oh,
that's it. You get one opportunity to hunt a giant elk per year, Dave. That's all you get. That's your opportunity. You got your tag. That's it.
Man, you just dropped a gigantic turd in a punch bowl.
See, won't that be fun? We can talk about that some other episode.
Leave it to marinate for a future episode.
Yeah,
huh?
you can. You can. I mean, and you can get one deer, one elk, one antelope. But that's your turn. Once you get your turn, you take your turn, and then it's somebody else's turn to do the same thing. You don't get to do it 5 times per year. Tell me what you think.
We're moving away from states managed wildlife to.
I didn't say anything. I didn't even say what we're talking about. I'm just throwing that out there as something that we can talk about again with our listeners at some other time. I would be interested to know if people like this, like where we take like a controversial topic and we just kind of like throw a bunch of spaghetti on a wall, and what they think of that. Like,
yeah, let us know. Yeah. Your Mountain, it's yourmountain.com.
Was this a waste of your time listening to this for the last hour? Because there isn't a solution to this.
And I know we've got a ton of folks from around the country, not Wyoming, listening to this, and we were very Wyoming specific. But I guarantee you that you're dealing with, wherever you are, you're dealing with some of these landowner and tag issues in your state, the same way we're dealing with them in our state. And I do want to end with how deeply appreciative I am of the landowner community and all that they do for wildlife, and how thankful I am for a lot of the landowner friends I've got, and
Who let
everything
me
they
onto
do.
their
So,
160 acres. I love you guys.
yeah, and then I also say, hey Nephi, you want to go, while we still have this program, you want to go buy 160 acres and hunt some elk in
We
Area 7?
probably should. We've talked about it before. There's a reason we know about all this.
Never done it though.
No, it's an interesting issue. Dave, thank you, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it was good. Appreciate you having the idea for the topic. So if you got feedback, yourmountain@itsyourmountain.com. Topic ideas, send them our way. Shoot us a note there. Shoot us a note on social media at the handle @itsyourmountain on Instagram and on Facebook. And Nephi, I'll see you in person in like a week and a half.
See you then, Dave. It'll be super fun.
And everybody else, until then, remember that life is about experiences. So go have one.